Access to quality and timely emergency medical response in Kenya continues to be an arduous task for many, including the government. Now, how best can non-state actors as well as the government come at the center towards addressing this very setback that is of much need, not just to citizens, but the entire taxpayers who are living in this beautiful country that is Kenya? Well, that forms the conversation of our actually the basis of our conversation today here on Business Glide, another classical edition, because it is our 70th edition. We've come a long way, and we are always appreciative of your support and consistent viewership of this channel and this particular show that we hope will have an impact on the future of Kenya's economy. My name is Richard Mwenja, as always, and to delve and debunk the myths in such conversations is none other than the man himself, Kenya's most sought after public scholar and political analyst, the first of his name, Herman Manyora.
Richard.
In a maroon tie.
Yes, yes.
Because it is our 70th edition. You can imagine.
That's wonderful.
Back to back.
We've come a long way.
We've come a long way, and yes, all thanks to our viewers.
Yes.
All right, today we're talking matters to do with responding to emergencies that come within the health sector. And in this particular context, we'll be dwelling much with how the government has boosted the efforts of paramedics in this particular country, especially for Nairobi City, because that's the major cry of city residents. Let's start from the main question of using healthcare provision as a political tool. You've seen the President Uhuru Kenyatta, days ago he was at Mihango, launching another hospital. Of course, members from the Kenya Kwanza Brigade and other opposite parties actually say that is just one ways of campaigning. Why now? And why actually healthcare when there already are the existing challenges in the Nairobi city? For this case, how crucial is it to address healthcare and sideline the issue of it being a political tool?
You know, the president of Kenya is a politician. He has come to office via politics. He remains in office doing politics. He retires doing politics. So I don't understand what anybody is saying. He's a politician. And in itself, even the most basic understanding or definition of politics is about getting power to be able to determine who gets what, when, and how much of it and where. So even the most basic rudimental understanding of politics is the power to be the one distributing things.
Do you particularly take concern with a number of Kenyans who are saying, even before you address healthcare, we already have underlying issues such as the cost of living. Before you go to the hospital, you don't even have that food to take in. Do you take concern with that, with people of such thoughts?
Of course, if things get to a point where even food is a problem to people, that is something of concern, certainly. Certainly.
So each one should be the
You can't even talk of health without nutrition. So it's true that the government must be concerned about Kenya, and I think I think government has started the process of lowering the cost of maize flour, unga, which is the main meal in this country.
A step towards the right direction.
So the government is in step and in sync with what is happening.
All right.
Yeah.
We have seen cases of fire outbreaks in this country. You've seen disasters building, caving in, and a number of other accidents that come on board that literally puts lives of many Kenyans on the brink of not actually seen the next day. Do we start from the issue of relooking at our urban planning and development? Because if you see at developed countries, go to Germany, go to Canada or Brazil, when you look at their major highways, we have emergency lanes. These are lanes to be used in times of emergencies, for ambulances, for paramedics, whether from private sector or public sector. When it comes to Nairobi City, particularly in other cities like Nakuru, you've seen the cases of there is a school burning. It takes so much time for people actually to get medical care. Do we start now from the issue of relooking at urban transport?
You see, for many years now, we've been driving in reverse gear. Instead of moving forward, we are going back. Nairobi had a plan. Things worked in Nairobi. I mean, when you have a city, you can't run a city like a village. All the things that a city needs must be in place. There must be provision for housing, transport, food, and name it. And all these things were sort of in place. Instead of improving and developing, we began to retrogress and go backwards. There is no planning you can talk of in Nairobi. And therefore, when disaster strikes, we are just, I don't know, like what? We are people like who don't think at all.
Those
you go in the slums, when there's a fire, as often there is, even fire ambulances and firemen vehicles, they can't pass.
Ogikomba market.
Yeah, because even just a road, we have built structures right into the road. People are doing businesses right into the roads. So saving lives becomes extremely difficult. And even within Nairobi itself, we are making Nairobi a city of maybe 300 years ago in terms of lack of planning. With all the mikokoteni, wheelbarrows, tuk-tuk, boda-boda, matatu, how can Nairobi be a city? It can't be a city. A city is a place where vehicles can move. And I've argued in the past, don't show you love people by allowing them to finish themselves. Because Nairobi needs to be a good modern city for it to attract investors. It is these investors who will then create jobs that will absorb these people who are pulling mkokoteni and riding boda and they are getting nothing out of it. Apart from it being a danger to their health because of exposing themselves to extremes of weather, they don't even earn anything reasonable from those borders. Why can't we make Nairobi a functional city that attracts investment, that has jobs to employ these people in reasonable jobs?
All right.
Yeah.
The next government will be coming in office in under a month, and we are seeing the term of Nairobi Metropolitan Services almost coming to an end. For this particular case, in the few days remaining, would you recommend for them probably to bring, say, Kenya Urban Roads Authority on board, and now NMS, which is trying to look at medical healthcare issues and response in there, so that they build synergy that will address the issue now, emergency lanes in the place and so forth?
Nairobi does not require isolated moves. Nairobi requires a comprehensive plan. A well thought out comprehensive plan that brings people from different sectors and experts from various fields, so that you are approaching it comprehensively. You cannot address housing in isolation. When you address housing, you must also address transport. When you address transport, if, for example, we were to build a rail line towards Thika, commuter rail line, electric, fast, that can move many passengers, it is possible we can relocate Kakuzi, planting trees in the Nairobi metropolitan area. Miti bwana tutawapatia mali ya kupanda. Okay? Rearing animals within the metropolitans. It doesn't happen like that in the way. Planting pineapples in Thika when people are staying in Kiandutu. You know, so we can give them alternative land, and then we put transport heading there, and then we have decent housing. We give people free land to develop housing estates. You see, so there is nothing you can address in isolation. And when you are talking about transport to Thika, and the housing in those pineapple places and the Kakuzi places, you will also be addressing issues of health. Because you are moving many people there, you need to provide health services. So you need health facilities. While that is happening, these people who stay there will need children. Have children. They will need schools. You see, it is comprehensive. It's a package. So Nairobi requires some comprehensive.
All right.
Yeah.
Will you say now, now that we're talking about issues with emergency medical response and the quality in there and the timeliness that the government has tried to build up over time, would you say the first giant to slay is actually the issue of integrity of such paramedics? You've seen Kenyatta Hospital has paramedics in there and a number of our national hospitals in there. But there are cases you make a call through their hotlines and they say ambulance haina mafuta, or the doctor, we are understaffed, we don't have people to operate this, the nurse is not on board, and so forth. We have a Kenyan country which has so many unemployed medical students who've graduated in there. Do you think actually now the issue of integrity is the first giant issue?
It's not integrity, it's not anything. You cannot blame anybody who works in Kenyatta Hospital and doesn't pick your call, and doesn't come to rescue. It is the entire system that has collapsed. You must address the entire system.
From the top?
Yeah, the entire system must be addressed. What is it that makes a hotline not work? What is it that makes the emergency to the police 999 not work? How come you can't call an ambulance? How come you can't call the hospital when you are in an emergency? It is not something you can pin on an individual. It's a systemic failure of our institutions and governance that must be addressed. You cannot just in isolation tell the people of Kenyatta Hospital, nyinyi mfanye kazi na wengine wote hawafanyi kazi.
A number of
everybody else is stealing money where they are working to be able to take their children to school, and they don't even have time for their work. They are making money, not even earning, making money elsewhere. Na huyu ndio nataka aende yeye afanye kazi. Akienda nyumbani bibi yake anamuuliza, lakini nyinyi wanaume mwingine angalia bwana ya nani. You see, we have to understand these things. It's a comprehensive thing we need to do, because this failure is systemic.
All right.
It is eaten the entire system. And that's why I keep saying, to change this country, you require one man or a woman at the top who will then set things in motion and say, this is going to be a working nation.
In this case, of the health ministry.
Yeah, now, you people in health, we will give you the support you require. But you have to work. But before you tell them that, you'll have to give them the necessary environment from which to work.
Operating.
That includes their welfare. You see, that includes, doctors have complained, we are going on strike not because we want salaries. We are going on strike because we don't want to see patients die in our hands over things, because we don't have gloves, things, cotton wool. A person is dying because something that would cost 200 shillings is not there for you. You feel bad you can't attend to a patient. Yet what is required is very little. And guys in procurement, they are making money every morning, every evening, every lunchtime. So doctors are going on strike. Of course, they need some money in their pockets. But top on the agenda is, why can't you give us facilities?
I see.
Yeah, so it's a whole mess.
All right. Yeah. And that definitely means you slay that giant, starting from the issue of remuneration,
yes,
issue of understaffing and
yes,
all that.
And then facilities.
All right, facilities.
Equip hospitals. Train doctors. Allow them to go for postgraduate studies. Come up with specialized training. Do benchmarking. No, this one of politicians. Let our doctors go to Israel, go Switzerland, work with the best. Come back with those skills. You know, that's what they are looking for. And then pay them well. Equip the hospitals. You get it?
Very well, sir. Yes. Very recently, I was speaking to one of the health managers from AMREF, and his school of thought was that the issue we are seeing with a backward trend in upgrading our paramedic support for both civilians and those from private sector is that probably the government is not building up enough synergy with non-state actors. Talk of NGOs. They say a number of NGOs have been sidelined. They say probably there are political threats and all that. We are seeing conflict of interest between the national health provider, that's the Ministry of Health, and agencies like AMREF and a number of other NGOs which are trying to improve quality of healthcare in this country. How then do you recommend that the government sees NGOs and other non-state actors as potential partners and not threats and a source of conflict?
Government will need to draw from other players. Look at, for example, something like Red Cross. You know, Red Cross. You cannot talk about the kind of benefit they bring when we have disasters and other things.
Absolutely.
But then you find either government is blocking some of these agents or ignoring them, or in the case of Red Cross, surrendering to them. So something has happened, government has left it to Red Cross. They're not even there.
Take the entire burden.
Yeah, they take the entire burden. Instead of working with them, supporting in there, it should be Red Cross supporting government. But here we have a situation where government has completely left it to Red Cross.
Or UN.
Now, when you know what time when the government now will come in, should there be relief supplies, that's when the government will now come in. And that time they will not want to give it to Red Cross. They will want to be the ones distributing. And you know what distributing
and to
mean.
Invite the media to cover that.
Yeah, and then they will not even distribute. They will take.
It has happened.
So, like you say, we need a coordinated approach. Government must work with the different players. And even those players, not all of them are honest. Many of them are there for the quick buck. Because if the UN, for example, through some agency, want to support farming in some area, those people will not want that UN body to work through government. They want to be the ones to be given, which is fine. Now, when you look at the logistics, how much money the logistics takes, then you begin to wonder, what is it? Was it the logistics or the food to be delivered? The logistics takes more than the food itself, number one. Number two, if you look at the kind of foods they are taking, there have been situations where, for example, like in Somalia and northeastern Kenya, relief supply was taken there in foods people don't eat. They just look at, hey, what is this?
Yellow maize.
There have been issues I have seen of maize, of beans that have been dried using dryers.
Yes.
They can't cook.
At
Of oil that even when you look at the oil, it is expired and the insects are inside. But these guys have bought those oils from outside using hundreds of millions of shillings.
In the name of
So everybody is trying to make a quick buck, including some of those NGOs.
Yes.
So if government comes in and provides the leadership, creates synergy between all these agencies, and make sense out of the whole process, then you can find the different players will all work. Even those with excesses can be moderated so that they benefit the cause.
I see.
Yeah.
Child mortality, sir, continues to be a big threat when it comes to healthcare provision in this country. We've seen First Lady Mama Margaret Kenyatta launch the mobile clinics program, of course, aimed at actually addressing such setbacks in the society. But over time, we are still experiencing cases of Pumwani Hospital having so many number of mothers who want maternal healthcare provision. They cannot access enough doctors. They cannot access timely medical response. In that case, we've seen issues of people in there working in cahoots. The cases of stealing children has been there. It's in the public domain that it is happening in this country. With regards to the issue of addressing maternal health, especially for city residents, majority of whom are based in the slums, how best can we approach this and make sure that this giant doesn't get beyond 2030?
You know, Nairobi has facilities that cannot support the population. Everything. The population of Nairobi is about 4 million.
Absolutely.
Quite up because of the transit population, those from Kiambu and coming and going. Slightly higher than that, perhaps. But the facilities are not even meant, perhaps, for 1 million people. So you'll not be surprised that the hospital to cater for our mothers delivering and so on, and other things that go with it, are not enough. It therefore surprises me sometimes. I even just get amused that when NMS and Uhuru Kenyatta are opening more clinics or more hospitals, people are saying it is politics. You can't understand now. What's wrong with the Kenyans when it comes to politics? So, but the idea is, we have to understand what we have in Nairobi is not even for 1 million people. And therefore, we must move with haste. First, to control the unnecessary expansion of the population of Nairobi. We need to ask ourselves, why is everybody coming to Nairobi? Even with devolution. Urban migration is going to be a thing of the 21st century. It's going to be serious urbanization. But that we know. But we can mitigate that by making our local towns and cities and county headquarters attractive. So to reduce the number of people who come to Nairobi. That's number one. And number two, we will need to engage in planning so that we can manage the populations we have. We have to plan for the population we have and the projected populations of Nairobi. But currently, facilities we have are not even enough for 1 million people in Nairobi. Yet we are about 4 million people. So the idea is to plan and put in place facilities that can cater for the population of Nairobi. And I want to add this. It's not impossible. Looking at the West, let's say talk about health, because that's the topic of today. If you look at the amount of money that is stolen and wasted in the Ministry of Health, if that money is not wasted, is not stolen, we can have a hospital the size of Kenyatta National Hospital in more than 5 places in Nairobi. With the same money, we don't need extra money. Ile pesa watu nakula tu, tutajenga Nairobi Hospital, Kenyatta National Hospital, tutaijenga Kayole, tutatenga moja Westlands ama Kangemi,
Mwiki.
Tutajenga ingine Mwiki, tutajenga ingine Kibra. Kibra ni karibu na Kenyatta. We can put up, actually, we had 8 divisions in Nairobi that corresponded to the 8 constituencies You remember Langata, then there was Madare, and then there was Starehe, Westlands, Makadara. There were 8. Each of those 8 can have a Kenyatta National Hospital. A hospital of that size with the health budget that is stolen in this country. Right. So within 5 years, we can have Kenyatta National Hospital in 80 locations in Nairobi. With a little more, of course, I'm just saying that the money is wasted, that we waste each year is enough to do that. If it's not quite enough, we can add. And the money to add is available in the country. So that is just in one direction. But more importantly, we need to do preventive health, community health, especially in the low-income areas, where there are very preventable diseases, where there's malnutrition and nutritional issues. We can address those to reduce the number of people who will finally require curative attention and admissions and other management facilities. So we need to start there. First of all, agree that the hospitals we have are not enough for this population, go into full gear and construct them. While that is going on, we go into the preventive care and so on and so forth.
All right.
And that would include hiring sufficient community health providers and public health
and critical infrastructure.
And then the critical infrastructure that goes with that. Then we hire the people, we train them. It can be done with a serious government. The beauty in Kenya, I'm yet to come across one thing that we can't do because either we don't have the money or we don't have the expertise. All we lack is the will. And this election must accord Kenyans an opportunity to choose from the 4. The best. The best doesn't mean that's the best we can get. The best from what we have. Yeah.
Actually, they say where there is a will, there definitely is a way. We hope that way is going to shine even more brighter after these particular general elections with regards to the electorate decision. Yes. As we come to the tail of this conversation, sir, you are a senior citizen and a renowned public scholar, and you've handled issues to do with health, even in panels with actually key health stakeholders. You've seen the question of us being over-reliant on donor. You've seen the cases of ARV shortages in this country, cases of aspirin drug for cancer patients. Even condom shortage has been there. It has been in the public headlines. For this case, would you say it's such a Herculean task for the government to now shift from over-dependence in donor support and literally building our own capabilities in there? Do we have that capacity to build self-reliance in our health sector?
It is a sad situation. I attended an international conference. It was called High Panel Scientific Conference on Research. I was one of the people, moderators or whatever. I can't remember what I was.
Donor support.
If you look, I asked them. It was in agriculture and forestry and something like that. Ask them, what would happen if donors withdrew? Because I see all your programs are donor funded.
Yes.
One day, we were at Pan Africa Hotel, attending a workshop or whatever, some of these things we go for. Funded. People of literature, writers, sometimes I call myself a writer. I may not be quite a writer, but I have tried writing. So, one lady, something that, I think she alive or something like that. The one who wrote Coming to Birth, and she's a white lady married to, I think, to a Luo person.
You have smart viewers.
She stood and I felt sorry for myself. She said, look at how many we are on this table. Are we that many? No. Look at how productive this session has been for the past 2 or 3 days. Are we saying we can't manage this ourselves? We have to wait for a donor to make us come and sit and talk such a good things. We can't come here and you buy your safety and I buy my safety. And we have this nice discussion. Because we are not using anything that is going to cost money. Just talking over a cup of tea, over very serious issues. We are talking about Commonwealth Prize of Literature, or something like that. I can't remember, from that nature. Must we wait for a donor? So you see the problem with us, most of our things, we are donor dependent. And I would hope Raila, if he becomes president of Ruto, we must cut that umbilical cord. Because during COVID, at some point, vaccines came in. African countries were crying. Kenya was on the queue, crying. that the West must not forget us. Of course, in terms of they were hoarding, they were putting more than they need aside for themselves. So that was a valid question. Vaccine apartheid. Okay? But there's also the issue is once the producing companies and countries had some to give to Africa, the question of buying now became an issue. Again, Africa began to cry. They should help us to buy. Then I took my pen and said 1 dose of Sputnik, whatever it was, how much it was going for. One, before it was kicked out of the country. Then I said, if this is a retail cost, what would it cost if government was buying in bulk? And even before I could answer, the prices were all there in dollars. Money Uhuru just uses in State House as entertainment was enough to buy a vaccine. I mean, in a manner of speaking, I said something on TV and some people call fact check from South Africa. I told them that's not how people talk. I'm just trying to make a point.
A figure of speech.
Yes, it's a manner of speaking. I'm saying the money we spend and waste on useless things is enough to buy our vaccines. So, and then the shocker came. When America, for some reason, because of pulled out of WHO for some times, I know whether they went back. That's not my line. I look at how much money WHO needs, or is the budget of which they... I said Kenya can finance WHO without feeling it. It's not even big money. So we must move away from that culture of dependence over even things we can do. Kenya need not have bothered about the amount of money for vaccines. It was not even getting to 30 billion.
All right.
You see what I'm talking about? So this over-dependence on donors, it makes us not even have a sense of pride as people, as Africans, as Kenyans, as a sovereign state. When you depend on people for things you can just buy, that's not good for a country.
Let me have your closing thought on the issue of the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority, that's KEMSA, which is actually at the center, right at the center of addressing such shortages. What will be your word for them? And the next president, how can he best address the efficiency of KEMSA? Dismantle
KEMSA. It's a conduit for corruption.
Conduit for corruption?
Yeah, just dismantle it. And if Raila becomes president, she should just call me, Manyora, tell me, how do I give hospitals drugs? How do I tell you, first of all, start by dismantling KEMSA? Then we start from there. Let us imagine KEMSA is not there. Now, how do we get drugs? Number one, out of these many drugs we buy, how many of those can be produced by our universities here and other people?
80% of
almost 60% of them. Even suspensions, you are told kukunya ya homa from India. So we are just being foolish people. The moment, the sooner you stop being stupid, the better. So you remain made with 30% or 40% of what KEMSA needs. A lot of some of the things we learned during COVID are just things like gloves,
sanitizers,
things we can make over here. Finally, you are left to make 20% or so of the drugs you need, and you can do that. You can enter into cooperation agreements with the drug producing companies, India, China, where America. Now they make specific for Kenya government. You don't need KEMSA.
Well, an elder has spoken, and that point by Herman Manyora definitely takes us to the wrap of our conversation today here on Business Glide. My name is Richard Mwenja. It's always a pleasure. But before we actually fade away from your screen, our fan of the week is none other than Mokaya Matara.
Mokaya Mataya, thank you for being part of us. Mokaya Mataya. It's a good poetic name. Mokaya Mataya. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, before you actually exit, make sure you get posted on our Business Glide, African Proverb of the Day. That is not only funny, but has nuggets of wisdom that will definitely help you be a better version of yourself. Until next time on Business Glide, my name is Richard Mwenja. Let's keep this conversation going beyond here. I'm at Mwenja Richard on Twitter, at Manyora on Twitter as well. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your viewing.